Solara had once been the pride of her village. Raised as the daughter of the village leader, expected to marry a powerful warrior who would help preserve her family's name and status. She grew up surrounded by tradition, the expectations of her father looming over every decision she made. But Solara was never one to follow tradition blindly. She was strong-willed, determined to make her own choices and live her life as she saw fit. When her father arranged a marriage to a warrior she didn't love, Solara refused, declaring that her future wouldn't be dictated by old laws and patriarchal customs. Her father's anger was immense. With a loud, unforgiving voice, he accused her of dishonoring their name. The entire village gathered to witness his wrath. In front of everyone, her father cast her out. He yelled, "You are no daughter of mine," and with a violent shove, sent her into the wilderness. The village watched, silent, complicit in the belief that she was no longer worthy of their time. She was nothing but a broken girl who had disgraced her family. Alone in the dark, cold night, Solara stumbled through the dense forest, her nightgown torn and her feet bleeding from the jagged rocks beneath. The only sounds that filled the air were the distant howls of wolves and the sound of her own breath, ragged and desperate. She tried to ignore the pain, but her body, weak from hunger and exhaustion, betrayed her. The wilderness, unforgiving and cold, seemed to swallow her whole. But she wasn't ready to die. Not yet. She hadn't given up. Not entirely. The wolves began to circle. The darkness pressed in on her from every side. The faintest glimmer of fear sparked in her chest. Her mind raced, but there was nowhere to run. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed into the snow, gasping for breath. The growls from the wolves grew louder, closer. Just when it seemed like the end, a figure appeared out of nowhere. A shadow that moved with purpose. A hunter. The wolves scattered as the man's presence filled the air. Not with violence, but with an undeniable authority. He moved quickly, his bow drawing an arrow with lethal precision, felling one of the wolves before it could reach her. He didn't speak a word, just stepped forward, eyes locked onto her as he knelt down beside her. "You're not prey. Not anymore," he said, his voice rough, but filled with something she couldn't place. He lifted her as if she weighed nothing, wrapping a cloak around her shoulders. She was too exhausted to fight, her body giving in as he carried her. For the next few days, Solara lay in the stranger's camp, recovering. Her body ached from the ordeal, but more than that, her spirit was bruised. She had been discarded by her own family, the people who should have protected her. But this man, this hunter, showed her more care than anyone in her life ever had. He didn't pity her. He didn't see her as a burden. He saw her as someone worth saving. When she awoke, he sat by the fire, sharpening his blade. His name was Kuldan, a man who had lived alone in the wilderness for years. He was quiet, his eyes always scanning the horizon, always aware of the dangers around them. But despite his silence, he began to train Solara. He taught her how to hunt, how to move silently through the forest, how to use a bow, and how to defend herself against any threat. At first she struggled, weak and uncoordinated. She fell more times than she could count. But every time, Kuldan was there to help her up, to guide her. His hands were firm but never unkind. "Pain isn't your enemy," he told her one day as she wiped the blood from her scraped knuckles. "It's the echo of where you've been. Let it speak, then silence it." Solara's transformation didn't happen overnight. Her hands blistered from hours of training. Her knees buckled under the weight of exhaustion, but she didn't give up. With every lesson, every challenge, she grew stronger. Her body, once fragile, became a weapon, and with that strength, her heart hardened. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was learning how to fight for what was hers. Weeks passed, and Solara became a different person. She wasn't the girl who had been thrown into the wilderness anymore. She was something else, strong, powerful, capable. But there was still something burning inside of her, a fire that refused to go out. Her past, her family, and the people who had rejected her still lingered in her mind. One day, Kuldan sat beside her, his face grave. "The village," he said. "It's under attack. The raiders are coming." The words hit her like a wave. The same village that had cast her aside now needed her help. A part of her wanted to let them fall. After all, they had abandoned her. But another part of her knew that she wasn't the same person who had left. She wasn't the weak, helpless girl. She was a warrior now. And warriors protect what's theirs. "I'm going back," she said. Kuldan didn't argue. "I'll go with you." They made their way back to the village. But when they arrived, it was already in flames. The raiders had breached the gates. People ran through the streets, screaming in fear. Solara's heart hardened. This wasn't her home anymore, but it was her fight. She found her father standing in the village square, his face twisted in disbelief. He couldn't comprehend what was happening. Solara stood tall, her sword in hand, and approached him. "You dare show your face here?" He spat, anger flashing in his eyes. Solara's voice was calm, unwavering. "I didn't shame your name. You threw it away when you threw me to the wild. I survived wolves, hunger, and the silence you put me in. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here to show you what I've become without you." Her father faltered, unable to respond. But Solara didn't wait for his apology. She turned away and led the charge against the raiders. Her sword flashing in the firelight. She wasn't just fighting for survival. She was fighting to show the village that she was no longer the girl they had abandoned. She was a warrior, and she would make sure they knew it. After the battle, the village was quiet. The raiders were gone, but the damage had been done. Her father came to her, his face filled with regret. "I was wrong," he said, voice breaking. "You were never broken. You're stronger than I ever knew." Solara didn't respond. She didn't need to. The past was behind her now. She had nothing left in the village but pain, and she wasn't going to stay for it. "Let's leave," she said to Khaldun, her voice steady. "This place isn't for me." With that, she and Khaldun left the village, stepping into the unknown. They weren't running away. They were choosing to build something new. Together they ventured into the wilderness, where Solara knew she could create her own future, free from the constraints of her past. Months later, Solara and Khaldun had built a sanctuary deep in the forest. It wasn't just a hiding place, it was a new life. But soon, lawmen came, seeking to claim the land they had worked so hard to make their own. They came with papers and authority, but they didn't understand the land, the people who lived on it, or what it meant to fight for it. When the lawmen arrived, Solara stood before them with Khaldun at her side. She didn't flinch. "This land doesn't belong to you," she said, her voice strong. "It belongs to those who fought for it. And we're not going anywhere." The lawman hesitated, sensing the strength in her words. Solara's heart pounded, but she stood firm. She wasn't the same girl who had been thrown away. She wasn't afraid of them, and with Khaldun's unwavering presence beside her, she knew they couldn't be defeated. The lawman left, defeated by the resolve of two people who had built something stronger than any piece of paper or law could ever be. They had fought for their land, their future, and they had won. In the years that followed, Solara and Khaldun built a community, a sanctuary for those who had nowhere else to go. Runaways, outcasts, and the forgotten found refuge in their land. Together they created something lasting, something unbreakable. Solara wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a leader, a protector, and a symbol of defiance. The fire inside her had never gone out. It had only grown stronger. Solara wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a leader, a protector, and a symbol of defiance. The fire inside her had never gone out. It had only grown stronger. And in the end, she had built a new life. Not from the ashes of her past, but from the strength she had found in herself.